Okay, let's go ahead and kick this off. I'm Dennis Sanford. I'm the president of the Historical Society here in Sonoy. I'd like to welcome all the members as well as guests. We're glad you're here. And those of you that have not been in this building before, hopefully you've taken a minute or two to kind of cruise around and see what's in here. And keep in mind that it's open every Friday and Saturday from 1 to 4. Free admission, guided tours, tell you all about the history of Sonoy and the surrounding area. So if you feel like you'd like to spend a Saturday afternoon or a Friday afternoon with grandkids or kids or just youth, come on in. We'd love to have you visit. If we could start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, I would appreciate it. Ready? Begin. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will try to keep this, the business side of things, real short and sweet. I know everybody who is a member is always interested in our financial stability, and I have to say that we are financially stable. We're happy about that. But as you also know, we are constantly raising money, looking for donations, looking for membership, because this organization and this building is purely donation-oriented. We get no funding from outside sources. So anything you can do for us would be very much appreciated. And part of that is when you entered the building, you came in the front, you walked across a very attractive brick walkway. That is part of our fundraising effort. We are selling bricks, $75 per brick. Inscribe whatever you want on it. You're limited to 3 lines. More than happy to take your brick, memorialize yourself, your relatives, your enemies, whatever. Put it out there because number one, it will be here for a long time, and number two, it will help the society and the museum. But also, going along with that, on November 13th, we are having our annual auction, fundraising auction. So as I've mentioned before, if you have things that you want to get rid of, not the stuff that you would not take to clothes less travel, used, slightly used, new, no junk, that we can then resell as, again, a fundraising effort. And Maureen Schuyler, the museum's director, is going to talk more about that, but just to give you an idea of the kinds of stuff that we have for sale. You see this lamp? That's going to be part of the auction. Homemade by one of our members, and it will be in the auction. But Maureen's going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. The other thing that is going to be part of the auction is, how many of you ever been to Breckenridge, Colorado?
Oh, look at that.
How many of you would like to go to Breckenridge, Colorado? Have you bought your ticket yet?
Yes.
Okay. We are selling 50 tickets at $100 each for 7 nights in Breckenridge, Colorado, including round-trip airfare for 2 from Atlanta to Denver. Okay. For $100. Your chances are 1 in 50. I don't care what casino you go to, you're not going to get those kinds of odds. So buy a ticket. We're selling them.
Here you go. Take one and pass them.
The drawing will be held at the auction on November 13th. And the ticket that you purchase, if you are the winner, is good for 1 year from the time that you get it. So roughly November 13th. Until November 13th of 2022. And the tickets, the airline tickets, will be available to you when you win and you decide what your dates are. We will then buy your ticket for you. That way you don't run into, whoop, I've changed my mind, or I bought a ticket and now I can't use it, all those kinds of things. So we will make it very flexible and very easy for you. Okay? It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. townhouse, luxury townhouse, private garage, shuttle service to downtown, walking distance to downtown. If you're a skier, it's ski in, ski out. So it's something that if you want to take a chance, now's the time. Okay? And again, keep in mind, we're drawing the tickets, we're drawing the winning ticket on November 13th, so you've got roughly 4 weeks to get your ticket. Okay? Let's see here. What else have I got to say? Cover the auction, cover the Breckenridge, cover the bricks. Oh, yes. For those of you that have noticed, over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we used to have a sign out here on the corner. And for the last month or month and a half, the sign's been missing. But tonight, the sign is there. Mysteriously appeared. So when you leave, or if when you walked in, you may have seen it, just take a look. There's going to be the same lettering on the other side of the sign as there is on the current, on this side of the sign. It's a project that's been in the works, but we are finally entering the final stages, so it will add. We used to have a sign out there that said Sonoy, and then underneath it was a little sign that said museum. Now we've got a big sign that says History Museum and no reference to Sonoy other than Sonoy History Museum. So we've kind of reclaimed our identity, and we are real pleased about that. So, with that, I think, Maureen, would you like to share some things with us?
I do have a few things to say.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, this is Maureen Schuyler. Maureen, as I referenced earlier to some folks, Maureen is the glue behind this whole organization. She's the one that keeps this building functioning, and the exhibits that you see, the credit goes to this young lady here. So thank you very much. So.
Well, as I'm not good with these.
Oh, yeah.
I think you can hear me. I have a really big mouth.
We're recording, please use them.
Have to use the mic.
Yeah, gotta use the mic.
Okay. As the director, I am acutely aware of the many hours of volunteer times that our members have spent. From the kitchen ladies who have provided our food and our drink tonight, to the docents who weekend after weekend sign up to be here on a Friday and Saturday, to our president, Dennis Stanford, who for 2 years has led by example, not just administratively, but also physically with all that he has done. So I'd like to thank all that. I'm also acutely aware of our corporate sponsorships. And I would like you to note who they are so that you can thank them also. Businesses like Table Talk, Coffee by David, Jennifer Camp at Edward Jones, Knife and Stone, Sonoy Bicycle, the DDA, Creekside Partners, and Morgan Media and Norcom have been sponsors for years and years to support us. But thanks to the efforts this year of Barbara Smith, there's Barbara down there, we're welcoming many new corporate sponsors, including Country Junction, Matt's Pizza, Sonoy Enterprises, Sonoy Engineering Solutions, John Bynum, the lighting studio here in Sonoy, Journals and Ledgers, and WinPack. And Bistro Hillary. So they're all added this year, which just, we just keep growing. Our support and our interest just keeps growing. If you go to any of those businesses or you know any of those owners, please take a minute to thank them for supporting us so that we can share Sonoy's history and heritage. Our new acquisitions over the past month include some arrowheads from Dead Creek Farm right here in Sonoy. And if you were here last month for Linda Quick's presentation, you know her honey child doll that was pinned by injured soldiers during World War I, World War II, will now become part of our veterans display that's in the back of the room here. So that's quite exciting for us too. And our museum team members are working hard on our Christmas displays that we will be having this year. Our theme is a literary Christmas. So right after Thanksgiving, come check out the museum again and you'll see some little vignettes of Christmas books like A Night Before Christmas and How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Gift of the Magi, just to name just a few. So that's where we're at. And anybody have any questions for me or any questions about the museum? Oh, the auction items. Yeah, we did pull out a couple of auction items just to tease you a little bit, if you look at the quilt over here, the 2-foot quilt made by award-winning fabric artist Claudia Wood, that'll be an auction item. The lamp is wood turned by Jack Martin. We have a one-night stay at the Veranda, the historic inn in town, and this is probably a really big farm-to-table dinner for 6 at the Elder's Mill Plantation. So that's going to be quite an event. So that gives you an idea. And then that side of the building will be all silent auction items, so there's lots of little fun things to bid on. And then when you come in here, we'll have bigger items.
Good. Well, as you can see, there's a lot of activities that go on in this little building. If you're not a member, seriously consider becoming a member. It's not that expensive, and we have a lot of fun. A lot of camaraderie is built over these meetings, and we have one every month. So something to do. Plus, you get to have free wine and some cookies.
And here's our membership application.
Oh, perfect timing. We've got a great program tonight, so I'm going to introduce Beth Young, who's our program chairperson, and she will then take it from here.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you and welcome everyone. I appreciate it. I'll only keep you just another minute, I promise. Just a couple of quick things before I introduce our guest. This program this evening is the last regularly scheduled program for 2021. There will be an event in November. Obviously, you've heard about the auction. We'll have a membership meeting on Thursday, November the 11th, and that's when we'll have our election for the board members that are coming off and coming on. There will also be, to entice you to come, there will be a preview that evening of all of the auction items. So everything will be set up for the auction that night, and you'll get to take a look at those and be the first to see those. But we'd love for our membership to come and participate in that election on Thursday, November the 11th. The auction is then on Saturday, the 13th. Then on Wednesday, November 17th, I'm telling you, it's hopping around here. We're having a Cook the Book event. This is our social event to kick off the holiday season. Angela McRae, who is a local author and was our guest speaker for the month of September, wrote a book, and it's the Vintage Christmas Cookbook. So we're taking these recipes and cooking them for the evening. Now you're looking at me saying, Beth, I don't eat dessert. Well, that's okay. We're going to have charcuterie that evening, as well as beverages. And so don't let that keep you from coming. It's going to be a great time. Bring your friends, bring your spouse. And the one thing I ask is that you RSVP or sign up on the sign-up sheet that will be on the counter here. So
Here's the sign-up sheet. Let's pass it around.
So there are certainly a lot of fun recipes in this book, but if you prefer and would rather bring something savory to share, that's fine too. Sausage balls, cheese straws, let's keep in the vintage theme, but that's perfectly fine. Just let us know so that we can get a head count. All right, folks, I mentioned it's here, so we'll, after the meeting, if you'll come take a look, that'd be great. I mentioned the programs, that this is the last regular scheduled program. I've been the program chair for the last 3 years, and I am stepping down from the post. So if you've enjoyed having programs every month, we need someone to volunteer. We've not had anyone yet to raise a hand and say, I'll help. It is a team of folks who, you're not going to be on your own, I promise. Also, we've sort of taken care of the first quarter of 2022 so that you can kind of wade into the position and you don't have to jump into the deep end right off the bat. So please see me or Maureen or Dennis afterwards this evening if you're interested. We'll be happy to walk you through it. It's very easy. If I can do it, anybody can, I promise. As long as you've got a way to send and receive email, you're good. So thank you so much. Now, for tonight's special guest. My husband and I, as a lot of you know, moved here a little over 4 years ago, and I was mentioning to Doug this evening that the sort of renaissance of Sonoy, if you will, was already in effect when we got here. And so we've seen photographs, we've read Mr. Cook's book to know a little bit about the past of Sonoy, but I was thrilled when we had a member recommend Mr. Doug Ellis to us this evening. as a speaker. So I thought this is an excellent way to look back and see a little bit more about what's made Sonoy and a past that we here at the museum are trying to promote and to preserve. Mr. Doug Ellis was the former CEO of Southern Mills, which you may know was sold to Tencate, and I know when I go to vote, I would pass this building with the unusual name and think, okay, I wonder what they do there. And then found out the connection to Southern Mills and was thrilled to learn more. That business came here to Sonoy in 1940, so that's been over an 80-year partnership with the city of Sonoy. So let's please give a warm welcome to Mr. Doug Ellis.
Beth, thank you so much, and thank you all for coming out and inviting me down here to talk about the Southern Mills history. We have been going a partnership. We have had a partnership now for over 80 years, and we've accomplished a great deal together. We've solved a lot of problems in those 80 years. We've worked hard together, and it's obvious that Sonoy has prospered, and so have we. So it's been a great combination. I'm also very appreciative that we've got a number of Tencate people here with us tonight. And I'd like to, if y'all would just raise your hands back there. You know, a lot of them don't know the early Southern Mills story as well. But as I say, we did start over 80 years ago, and one of the first things we had to learn was how to pronounce your name. You know, Sonoya is a beautiful name. It's named after this lovely, the pictures of her around, this lovely daughter of an Indian chief, and y'all call it Sonoy. And so we were wondering about that, and a couple of our early employees were driving down here from Atlanta, and they were arguing about it, and they said, well, why don't we stop into the first commercial place we come to in town and see really how they pronounce it. So they did. They drove in to this little spot and went inside, and there was a lady there behind the cash register. They said, now ma'am, we need your help. We want to know very slowly, if you'll pronounce it, what you call this place. And she said, Dairy Queen. Once we got that understood, well, it all started with my dad, and Ellis Crook's going to tell you a little more about him because Ellis knew him well. Dad graduated from Cornell in 1921, and he went to work with his friend, Cason Calloway, down at Calloway Mills, down in LaGrange. He was the superintendent of the Valley Waste Mills. A couple of years after he started down there, Cason asked him, said, Bill, go up to New York and study this market for laundry padding, the padding that they put on commercial laundry presses. Because I want to know it may be an opportunity for Calloway Mills. So Dad went to New York and he figured out what machinery they used and how they made the padding and what the market was. And he came back and told Cason. And Cason said, well, Bill, it's too small for us. And Dad said, well, you know, Cason, it's not too small for me. I've always wanted to have my own company. So with your blessing, I'd like to go back to Atlanta and start a little company up there and make this cotton padding for laundry presses. And we'll buy our yarns for the warps. We'll buy our yarns from Calloway Mills. Well, it was a deal. Dad went back up and rented some floor space on the second floor of the Atlanta Woolen Mill. He actually became the supervisor of the second shift while he was up there. But he bought 2 cars and 2 Wilhelm Barfus knitting machines from Germany. And he began running this cotton padding. And that first year, I've got some notes here because there are a lot of numbers and I want to tell you about them. But that first year, they made $1,462. Can you imagine how excited they were to have a profit? Very first year. He had 5 employees, and they were working, of course, one shift, and off they went. They started adding other products, so they started making the covers that went on over the padding, on the presses. They began making laundry nets where they would wash your clothes in these nets. They began making the baskets that push your clothes around in. And gradually, the company grew and grew, but the market really wasn't growing. And there were other competitors. They were folks, they're always competitors. They were folks in the business. And so Dad really was looking for some other opportunity that he could start going. In 1939, he read about, and I'm going to show you a piece of this product, which I found here. I don't have a piece, but it was here in the museum. It's a product, it's a replacement automobile seat cover fabric. It's made for automobile seat covers. It's made out of paper. We would purchase large rolls of colored paper, bring them in, slit them, twist them into yarns, and then weave these beautiful patterns. We had a whole variety of patterns, and the business began to grow. And it was very successful for a while. Then Detroit came out with synthetic covers. In 39, they were making their upholstery fabrics out of wool, and people didn't want to ruin the fabric, so they would buy a seat cover to cover the fabrics, and then they would take them off and hopefully buy another seat cover. But when they sold the car, they could take them off, and the upholstery fabrics would look really good. So everything went well until Detroit started using synthetic fabrics that were tough and strong and beautiful, and all of a sudden, this business began to dry up. I graduated from school and came to Sonoy in 1963, and my first job was to run the fiber fabric division. Backing up just a little bit, we didn't have a plant down here, and so Dad was wondering, where am I going to weave these fabrics? Where are we going to grow? Well, we had a person that was working down in our shipping department named Parker Cleveland. His daughter Diane is here with us tonight. And Parker was just a live wire, and he was just had a tremendous amount of energy. And he came to Dad one time and he said, Mr. Ellis, my father and a group of people in Sonoy would like for you to come to Sonoy and build a little plant down there to weave these automobile seat cover fabrics. And I've got a list of the names of the people that came. It was Parker's father, Mr. C.F. Cleveland. There was R.C. Hardy, Dr. J.M. Tribble, C.F. Holberg, Frank Daniel, Jimmy Hutchison's dad, Paul McKnight, and Mrs. Lee Hand. Well, that was quite a contingent to come up to Atlanta, And they said, Mr. Ellis, we want you to come to Sonoy. Sonoy has no payroll down here. We have no manufacturing facility. People need jobs. Would you come down? I tell you what, we will build the plant for you. Dad said, well, I don't have any money. I can't. They said, we'll take care of that. We will build the plant for you, and we'll let you have it rent-free for 5 years with no tax. Wow. Now, how do you turn down an offer like that? So, sure enough, they built the plant and came down. It was 10,000 square feet. It was all wood. They sold it to Southern Mills a little later for $1 a square foot, heated, lighted, and sprinkled. That's what it had cost them to build this plant, $1 a square foot. Dad hired a fellow named William Thompson from Richmond, Virginia. He was from New England, but he had been down in Richmond, and he was familiar with manufacture of these products. I want you to come up here and see this. This is a unique fabric, and it was just a wonderful sale. We called it the Fiber Fabric Division, and this was fiber fabric. So things went really well for a while. Then when Detroit came out and began, and in '63 when I came down, one of the first jobs I had was to take over the Fiber Fabric Division. I remember going up to Hinton Manufacturing, which was up in Illinois somewhere, and I went in and said, I'm Doug Ellis from Southern Mills, and and I want to talk to you about your needs for fiber fabric for next year. They said, Doug, we're so happy that you've come. We've got 4 rolls down in the basement we want to sell back to you. I don't understand. I'm trying to sell them. It was pretty obvious what was happening. And so we closed the plant and we sold the inventory that we had, and we were out of the fiber fabric business. But we were still going strong on the laundry textile products, and we needed more space. We needed another production facility, and the old fiber fabric plant was not going to cut it because it was $1 a square foot. You can imagine the conditions of it. But we wanted to build a nice plant. So at that point, Dad purchased from Mrs. Hand 10 acres for $250. That was when he was first buying the plant. He bought 40 acres from Mrs. Hand at $150 an acre. I think land down here is a little more expensive than that. But with that, and that was in 1957, and that's the land that the synthetic plant, which we call the synthetic plant, is on now. In 1960 then, he said, we need to build a new plant down here. Would you all help? The mayor at that point, Doug, you'll like this, was Freeman Sasser. And Freeman Sasser said, I'll help you, Mr. Ellis, and we'll start a industrial development corporation, and we'll raise the money, and we'll build the plant. They sold $60,000 of stock, borrowed $240,000 from the U.S. government Small Business Association, and built a 38,000 square foot plant, which we call the synthetic plant, and that's our main facility down here. Southern Mills deeded 10 acres to the Development Corporation so that they would own the land and also the building, and they rented it to us, and this was pretty good, $3,375 a month for 15 years. And there again, another really good deal, because it was a partnership, and Sonoy needed Southern Mills down here. They needed us to come down and help them grow. So when I joined in '63, it was obvious. I tried several other things that we could do with that fabric. Tried making some placemats out of it. Tried making screens for TVs, for hi-fi sets, and nothing was going to go. So we closed it down and sold our inventory to a competitor named Twitchell up in Philadelphia. In 1964, that was in '63, in '64, DuPont came out with 2 magic fibers, Nomex and Kevlar. Now you all know a lot about Kevlar because you've seen it in ballistic vests, and they were actually put out Kevlar to go into tires. They were going to be the replacement tire cord to replace steel belted tires. But they didn't have a use for Nomex, and they had never made a fabric out of Nomex. They came to Southern Mills because they thought Nomex, because of its heat resistance, and that was the real character of these 2 fibers. It will not melt. The Nomex and Kevlar will not melt at any temperature. It will not support combustion under normal conditions. If you bring in oxygen, you can make anything burn, but it will not burn, and it chars at 700 degrees Fahrenheit. So this very high temperature resistance was its character. They thought it would go great on the laundry press. And so they came to us and we said, well, let's see if we can make a fabric out of it. Nobody had ever spun or woven any Nomex into a fabric. We went over to Georgia Tech, used their laboratory and got their help, and used our own employees and learned how to spin and weave Nomex fabrics. Our first customer was Sears Roebuck, and it was sold for home ironing board units. And so all of a sudden Nomex had a use. We began introducing it to the commercial laundries. It worked well there, and all of a sudden we had a new product, and off we went. Then we learned how to dye Nomex because it was so heat resistant. If you put it in a dye bath and got it up to a boil and poured dye stuff in there, it would just run off. The fiber would not accept it. We developed the technology to dye Nomex, a variety of colors, and that happened just at the time that asbestos was deemed a carcinogen. So a lot of people in the protective clothing business were saying, well, what can we use in place of Nomex, in place of asbestos? Well, we came in with Nomex, and colored fabrics, and DuPont helped us, and we went around, and one of the first places we went was to the fire service industry, firemen, because they were having to go into hot situations, and all of a sudden they had this wonderful new fabric that they could use. In 1969 was a momentous year for us. Mario Andretti was practicing for the Indianapolis 500. He came, it was a practice run, a time practice run. He came around turn 4 at over 200 miles an hour and ran right into the wall. There was a movie being taken of it. It's all on film. The car immediately caught on fire and spun down the track with this inferno covering the car. And after about 5 or 6 seconds, Mario comes out of the car and he's okay. And about 300 Southern Mills employees took a great feel because he was wearing one of the first Nomex garments that had been made of our Nomex fabrics. Well, we had this picture that we could take around. And so we began calling on not only the fire service industry, but utility companies, the electrical companies, and anywhere where there was a fire hazard. And it was just a wonderful boost. And we began to grow. And the synthetic plant down here was covered up with business. We added 20,000 square feet to the plant in 1966. In 1967, we added another 32,000 square feet. And it was going great. In 1975, we built the nonwoven plant, because we were doing a lot of needle punched fabrics. Some of them were liners for this fire service industry. One of the fabrics that we made in nonwoven had a good history. We had a close relationship with the Monsanto chemical company. They produced a fiber called acrylan, which was used in outdoor fabrics, and we needle punched a fabric that was sold to putt-putt golf courses. And you've seen it, it's the green fabric, it's still out there. And so we were covering, selling it to all these folks, and we said, what else could we do with this green fabric? Well, we said, it'd make a wonderful tennis court. I mean, you could take a tennis court that's concrete, so many courts around were made of concrete or asphalt. We could cover it with this AcroTurf, and it would just play well. So we arranged with a New York tennis club to cover a famous court on the top of one of their buildings in New York City. It was just wonderful. They loved to play on it until it rained. A tennis court is absolutely flat. If it were crowned, the tennis ball would go bouncing off on the side. It's absolutely flat. Well, with no drainage system, just a concrete, it would rain, and you couldn't go out there for a week. It wouldn't dry. We kissed that frog, hoping it would turn into a fence. And we thought, how about golf? Think about how wonderful it would be if we could cover, we do putt-putt greens. How about a real green? Why don't we cover some real greens out there? And we tried that. Problem, wouldn't hold a chip shot. You could chip a ball on it, and the ball would bounce off. Chip another, it would not bounce off. It wouldn't work. But then Monsanto came out with AstroTurf. And AstroTurf was put for the first installation in the Astrodome in Houston. And they came to us and they said, we got a problem. We've got this nice AstroTurf carpet that's out there, but it's not soft enough. And they're trying to play football on it, and they're getting hurt. Would you buy some waste fiber from us, 15 denier acrylic fiber and make a non-woven pad, 50 ounces a square yard, big heavy pad, and we'll put it under the AstroTurf. We said, yeah, we can do that. So we made a pad, and they covered the Astrodome under the AstroTurf with our pad, and it worked like a charm. And so every time they would sell a stadium with AstroTurf, they'd call us up and we'd buy enough fiber to make an Astro pad to go under until we covered the Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Now Busch in St. Louis is an open stadium. It has the roof, it has no roof. And we just going fine until one night in December, it rained hard the night before a football game. And then the temperature dropped to about 10 or 15 degrees, and the water had soaked through the AstroTurf into our Astro pad. It was saturated with water, and it froze solid. And so the next day, these poor guys went out there to try to play football on it. It was like playing on the sidewalk out here. And so they, Monsanto had to go to a closed cell foam for their pad. So that was another frog we had kissed and didn't turn into a prince. We were really hoping it would. We began to add new equipment, and we were in love with new equipment, and it was expensive, but the progress that they had made from conventional spinning and weaving equipment to what is available today is just incredible. But we had to have a lot of money to buy that equipment. We were making pretty good money. But I came in to see Dad one time. He tells this story on me as he was introducing me to some group, and he said, we couldn't hire a Harvard Business School person. We wanted to hire somebody from Harvard to come in, but we couldn't afford him. So we sent Doug. And so I went up to Harvard, and I came back from the Harvard Business School, and as we were getting into all this new machinery, I went in to see Dad. I said, Dad, we have a problem. He said, what's that, Doug? I said, we're not utilizing our debt capacity. And he told this group, all of my life, I've been trying to get out of debt. And my son comes in, and he says, we're not utilizing our debt capacity. He said, I want to introduce my son, Doug Ellis, who has gotten us up to our debt capacity. We did. We borrowed a lot of money, and we began to equip the plant and grow rapidly with this new equipment. Now, about that time, we had built the non-woven plant behind the old Cabletex plant. And we were using the Cabletex plant to store some old machinery. And the head of the fire department, they had a volunteer fire department here in town. He came to us and said, what are you going to do with the old plant? And we said, well, we're going to tear it down. He said, how would you like for us to burn it down? And we said, sure, that would be great. He said, what we'll do, we'll set it on fire and burn it and put it out. And then we'll set it on fire again and practice and let it burn, and then we'll put it out. So sure enough, they burned it down about 5 times. And we had taken the machinery out, and we had sold the machinery to someone else, a dealer, and we hired a guy to come in here with a big truck. And he had offloaded all this equipment onto his truck, and it was stacked up really high, really high. And he started out of town. Well, in those days, in Sonora, when you put up your Christmas lights, you would leave them up all year. And they covered Main Street. They were covered with Christmas lights. Well, this guy snagged the Christmas lights on his way out of town. He drove out of town with about a half a mile, dragging a half a mile of Christmas lights up our way. But we did burn down the fiber fabric plant. We built our new office up in Union City in 1983. And then we ran into another problem down here. We were finishing our fabrics here. We were utilizing Sonora water, and the town was running out of water. We didn't have enough water. It was being supplied by some deep wells. I think there were 5 or 6 deep wells in town, pumping it up into this water tank. But we were using more and more water to finish our fabrics. we were also developing an old treatment plant out there, which you all are still using, the town is still using, but this particular chemical that we're using had a really bad odor. And so we began to get complaints, normally, naturally, from people in Sonoma saying, Mr. Ellis, this is just terrible. You got to come down here in the middle of the night when there's a fog and smell this thing. So we knew we had to do something else. So we built a new finishing plant down in Upson County, and that was going well. We were continuing to grow, and we built a new weaving plant, actually bought a weaving plant from the Thomaston Mills over in Zebulon, and we continued to grow there. In 1998, 99, 98, and 2000, I served as president of the National Textile Association. And I spent a lot of time in Washington talking to the senators and mainly the Senate Finance Committee, trying to have fair trade instead of free trade. But the consumers of America, led by all of the retailers and the importers and all of that group, had a stronger lobby than we did. And they wanted inexpensive, high quality, but inexpensive fabrics from Asia. They were not interested in jobs in the United States. And we tried awfully hard to get them to put in tariffs and quotas to protect us, and it wasn't going to happen. And I realized at that time that Southern Mills was in for a rough ride. The whole textile industry was in for a rough ride, as in fact it has been. And I knew that the big companies that were weaving sheets, towels, and pillowcases, and draper fabrics, and those things were going to be out of business. And they would be looking for special niches, and they would see Southern Mills and the success that we had, and I knew that we were going to start getting some really tough competition. I said, well, it's time for us to sell the company. We had very fortunately made friends with a company over in the Netherlands called Royal Tencate. It's a wonderful company. They were the largest manufacturer of protective fabrics in Europe, as we were in the United States. In 1995, 5 years earlier, they had gotten to know us. We had met them over there in shows. We were actually selling some of their fabrics in the U.S., and they were selling some of our fabrics. So we were developing a friendship and a partnership, and we were very impressed with them. And they really wanted to buy us. They wanted our technology, and they wanted our market presence in the U.S. So I called Luke DeVries, who was the CEO over there, and I said, Luke, if you're ready to dance, we're ready to dance. Come on over. So he came over, brought a team over, and he went all around to the plants, and we began to negotiate. And it took us a couple of years, but we sold to Royal Tencate. Florida and I went over there in 2003. It was interesting. Tencate was the oldest publicly held company in the world. In the world. They had gone public in 1703. And we went over there in 2003 to celebrate with them their 300th anniversary of going public. So you can see the quality of this company that we sold to. So Tencate came over, purchased us, and have done a terrific job with it, particularly with the protective fabrics. We had learned not only how to dye the fabrics, but to print them. And that opened up printing camouflage. Well, you can imagine printing camouflage is just what the military wanted. And so all of a sudden, Tencate came over, and we didn't have the knowledge of how to sell to that market. We were beginning to make inroads into it. We certainly weren't selling any fabric outside of the United States. They were worldwide, so it was a great marriage, and we sold to Tencate. We have enjoyed the relationship ever since. We have enjoyed being retired. Our employees are happy because the plants have continued to run, and we've been very fortunate. So thank you very much for having me down. That's the story.
so much, Doug. Does anyone have any questions?
I think you need to recognize Ms. Massendale and anybody else that's worked in the plant.
Yes, please.
With Southern Mills.
If you worked at Southern Mills or, all right, Cheryl, yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Let's take a photo afterwards of everybody that.
Well, before we do that, our own local Sonoy boy, Mr. Ellis Crook, would like to come up and say just a few words about Mr. Ellis. We got a lot of Ellis. Mr. Ellis's father.
You know, Doc and I are the oldest thing in this room, you know. Doc and I went to school together, all the way through grammar school. We were born the same day, too. We didn't figure out which one's the oldest, though. Yeah. Anyway, it's been a life story for me. I was born, my mother was 44 years old. I was reared by my grandparents. My parents were really grandparents. The only two places they took me was the church, to fossil law singing, and that was about the only place I went. And I was a country boy working in the field, plowing mule, picking cotton pot, and everything went around the farm. Along came, I got about 1946. I had a lucky night. I'm going to read something to you. I'm going to pass it around. That was photographed out of Atlanta Journal in 1946. Hold on. A 90-year-old man doing this is a trick.
That was just a miracle in and of itself, right?
I got it. Sonora's first to elect born girl of the year. Ellen Hudson, nearly 14, and Ellis Crook, going on 15, as both of Sonora, population 700, smile as they are feted by at the Atlanta Athletic Club in Atlanta by William B. Ellis, President of the Georgia Citizens Council, which suggested the selection of the outstanding boy and girl of the year in each Georgia town. The Sonora, located between Union and Griffin, is first to make the leadership selection. Several leaders said several leaders there based selection on board leadership and citizenship. Well, let me tell you what this brought about now. This country boy had never been anywhere. I was green as grass. Mr. William Thompson, Mr. Thompson, your superintendent of Southern Mill, picked up us one afternoon, Ellen Hurst myself. It might have been a boy and girl, I don't know, but we took it to Atlanta, to the Athletic Club, which is your reading out. Y'all can pass this around if you want to. Anyway, we walked in there for dinner that night, celebration. This country boys ran from something they'd never seen before. They sat down at this banquet table. I looked at the plate, I looked at my plate, I looked to the left, I looked to the right. I had 3 forks on the left, 2 knives on the right, and a spoon up in front of the plate. Then all at once I spied this glass with a stem on it, with beautiful blue water in it. It had a kind of chrome around it somehow. Had these things looking like my big finger hanging down in it. I don't know what those were. Never seen before. Anyway, I had to watch, see what it was. Everybody else, what they were going to eat and how they were eating, to know what fork to use. To find out what I was going to eat is hanging on a stem around the glass. Well, finally somebody said, isn't this shrimp good? Shrimp, never heard of it. It was an education that night. But I was really getting my eyes open. But the highlight of the night was really riding like later on that night. Mr. Thompson put us in the car and took us across town to Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. At that night, that time, this country boy, we didn't have TVs back in there. No TV, no had the radio. Anyway, walked in the Municipal Auditorium, sat up front, holiday on ice. Well, when I got in there, and those people come out and skating on ice, which I never seen anybody skating on ice. And on top of that, those costumes they had on, I was sitting on the edge of my seat all that show that night. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and it threw me through all emotions, you know, because I didn't realize that even happening. But let's speak forward about from 1946 to about 1957. Mr. Ellis, your daddy, wanted to build that plant. He elected, got Frank Daniels to serve on the Sonora Development Authority. A big Frank, we call him. He owned gin, he owned a big general merchandise store, 10-cent store, cotton gin. He bought one share, $100. 6% is what he bought one share. Your daddy saw his mistake right quick. So your daddy came to me. So country boy learned a little bit, you know, by that time, and asked me to be president of Sonora Development. So we got busy. He wanted to sell bonds, 6% bonds. And Jimmy Hudson and I, with a lot of help from some other people, sold around $20,000 of bonds in Sonora. Then Lizzie Barron, who was Chamber of Commerce and Union, also a real estate business, they sold a little $20,000 of back. But your dad needed about $65,000, what he needed. But luckily he was serving on the bank board there in Atlanta, and he got the bank long enough to get him to the figure, 65, and the government loaned the rest to build that big plant. So I paid him back in full what he did for me when I was 15. But anyway, I've been in Southern Mill for a long time. Your daddy was a super smart Southern gentleman. When he walked into a plant, came down out of Atlanta, periodically, to check on everything. When he walked through that plant, he knew every employee's name before he got to him. He got a phone saying his elbow, in case he didn't remember to tell who that employee was. He called their name when he got to him, asked how the families get along, they had the problems, so forth. And you didn't have to worry about a union from the sales around. And also, he had George Cleveland Smith, Vice President of Human Relations. Now, George took a Valentine, gave him every employee a Valentine at Christmas time. She had some point at Christmas time, and I think Valentine, she had a Valentine. At Christmas time, she had something else for him. She was really a PR person, great woman, the first woman president of County Chamber of Commerce. First woman. But anyway, back to your dad. This black man named U.B. Elder, his picture living there with his mule out here, would work with your daddy. Just like that. His house burned, his trailer burned down. He came to me, tell me his story and so forth. I said, here's what you do, U.B. You go see Mr. Ellis, tell him your problem, see if he can help you. Good daddy bought him a trailer, they got him on a trailer, all the way, bought and paid for a profit, and put UB in a new home. Way back years ago. That's, you talk about integration, your dad helped people what color they were, he helped them. They really did. But anyway, it's been a great experience, and I enjoyed the relationship, to make the money off people, he paid all the people. By the way, Dot said over here, Dot said she wanted to come tonight, if I told her I was going to think about it, she wanted to eat my opinion. But anyway, Dot goes some more back, but there's Ethel, this here, Roy Shea is Ethel, and Miss David, Miss Lucille Parks, and Dot right there, they said the Dot was at college, so they were Southern Mills, right, Dot? Said two of the college. Nancy said right here now, she graduated and retired school teacher also. She was an associate principal at a middle school. A lot of people have enjoyed prosperity from Southern Mills. I want to thank y'all. Have a good night.
that's first-person experience, and so we're so grateful. And what a legacy that you have to hear about your dad, and what a good employer he was, and a good man. So
Beth, Miss Dorothy started when they were doing the netting, and she inspected it instead of
thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Just one more thing, Doc was a telephone operator when it plugged in and she listened on the gospel.
She never told it. She was always very circumspect.
Oh, that's your house.
A woman of integrity. That's awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming. We appreciate the visitors who have joined us tonight. Thank you so much. We hope you'll come back and take a tour and spend a little time here in the museum. Thank you so much to you, Mr. Ellis, and to his wife, Florida, who is with him tonight. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. We've already presented them with a gift of our thanks this evening, so we'd love for you to come up. I know Maureen wants to take some photographs, and then also sign up for the items here on that we've talked about tonight. Thanks so much, guys. We appreciate it. If you did work for Southern Hills, Maureen would love to get a photograph of everyone here who is a former employee.
I'm sorry. This job. You get hazard pay for this.